All right, so this video is to help with the Tuesday, March 2nd, Desmos Unit 5, Lesson 6. Our agenda, we did a number talk in class. It was number 2 on the Desmos. We completed Desmos 3 and 4. And then you were supposed to fill out the Google Forms exit ticket. The link is right here. So we're going to go ahead and click on this Desmos link. Yesterday, you did have an Ed puzzle. So if you haven't done that Ed puzzle, all you had to do is click on the Ed puzzle link. You might have to log in with Google if you're not already logged in. So you'll log in with Google, always log in with Google, your school Gmail. You were supposed to watch the video and answer the questions that pop up. And then you were supposed to, when you finish the Ed puzzle, you were supposed to log into Prodigy with Google, answer at least 10 questions, and then mark it as done. So if you haven't done that, make sure you get that done. We're going to click on, I'm going to show you how to get help on your Desmos. So you're going to click on that link. When it opens up, you might have to log in if you're not already logged into Desmos with Google. Number 1 is there's nothing for you to do. It just says the lesson 6 title, which is subtracting rational numbers. Our learning target is to find the difference between two rational numbers. Difference meaning subtract. So if something ever tells you to find the difference, you're subtracting. Rational numbers are whole numbers like 5 and -7. So whole numbers, both positive and negative. Rational numbers are also fractions like 1/4 and -8/7. So they could be positive or negative fractions. And decimals are also rational numbers. So decimals like 2.1 or even -0.25. So rational numbers are pretty much all the numbers we know of right now, whole numbers, fractions, and decimals, and they can be positive or negative. So you want to know how to subtract all these different kinds of numbers. So we're going to go, there's nothing for you to do on 1, so you'll click next to number 2. Number 2 is our number talk saying missing added in. So there's a number missing that I'm adding. The left side wants you to find the missing number, so find out what C equals. The right side wants you to write an equation, this equation as subtraction. So we're going to do both. So on the left side, no calculator. We have 247 plus what, something missing, C, equals 548. In class, we talked about a method could be to take the whole and subtract the piece. So if you think about this with a picture, if my whole thing, my equals, is 458, and these two things add to that, then 247 plus C, these two are going to add to make the whole. So if I subtract 247, if I take it away from the whole, then I'm going to be left with C. So for each of these, we can actually do 458 minus the whole minus the piece. So 458 minus 247 will be your answer. You can type in C equals and the number, or just the number. So 458 minus 247 was actually 211. So for the first one, you can type in 211, or you can type in C equals 211. Either one is fine. And then over here, you were supposed to write an equation as a subtraction problem. Well, we kind of already did that. So we did 458. So we did the whole minus one of the pieces. So if I do the whole minus one of the pieces, that will equal the other piece. So that will equal C. And you'll notice it even said 211. So. All right, so that was the left side and the right side. Again, we need to find the piece. So we have piece plus piece equals whole. So if my whole thing is 58.92, if I have 43.8, 43.87 plus something plus C equals the whole, then if I subtract this piece, if I take this piece off, the 43.87, I'm going to be left with C. So if I take off this piece, I'm going to be left with C. So we did 58.92 minus 43.87. You're going to have to do some borrowing. Remember to line up that decimal. Mine wasn't lined up very well. So I'll go ahead and let you guys do that one. So we're going to do this number minus this number. So this number minus that number. Whatever you get, you'll type in the box here. Remember, we line up the decimal. For the last one, it's 15/8 plus C equals 51/8. In class, we talked about, well, the missing number has to have 8 on the bottom because when I'm adding fractions, I have to have a common denominator that doesn't change, and I don't add it. I never, ever, ever add the denominator. So 8, 8, 8. So now I'm just looking for 15 plus what equals 51. And in class, we talked about, well, I can take 51 and I can subtract the 15. So if 15 plus something equals 51, I can subtract the 15 to get the remaining C. So 51 minus 15, and then I know it's going to be over 8. So 51 minus 15, whatever I get, I know it's going to be over 8. And so I think we got 36. So on the last one, you'll type in 36/8. And we just use the slash key to make a fraction. All right, and then for this side over here, we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to make a subtraction equation. I'm going to do the whole, take away the piece, which is pretty much what we did on the other side. Whole, and I'm going to subtract the piece. So for each of these, I'm subtracting the pieces. So this one I'm subtracting 43.87, and that equals C, because that's the piece left over. For this one, I'm doing 15/8, and again, I'm left with C. So in here, you'll just type in whole. This works for any subtraction problem or any addition problem. Any addition problem, you can find the missing piece by subtracting the piece you have from the whole. You can also think about it like this. If I have a whole cookie, which is my answer, my sum, if I have my whole cookie and I break off a piece for me, so I take that piece away, I'm going to be left with the remaining cookie for my friend. So if I take the whole and I take off a piece, I'm going to be left with the other piece. So whole cookie, I take off a piece, I'm going to be left with the other piece. So that's kind of how we're writing these subtraction problems. 51/8 minus 15/8, and then it equals C. Notice I have to click on the side to make this correct. And I'm just using the slash key. It looks like that. So it looks like that. Sorry, that 5 looks weird. All right, so that was the first one. All right, so feel free to pause anytime if you need to. For number 3, it says a mountaineer is changing elevations. Write an expression. Expression just means an equation with no equal sign. So like this. This is an expression that represents the difference, which we know is subtraction. So we know this means to subtract, between the final and the beginning. So the final elevation and the beginning elevation. So we're going to find the difference between the final and the beginning elevation. So I'm going to erase that. Write the value of the change. So the change is just the answer to the subtraction problem. The first one is done for you. Notice it says no calculator. You can use scratch paper or the whiteboard below. So I did give you a whiteboard. So I'm going to zoom in over here. So notice it gives us a beginning elevation, a final elevation. It wants the difference between the final and the beginning. And then the change is the answer, and then it will tell you if it's correct. So before we get started, in class I talked about how did they know to put 900 first and not 400. Some of you said that the bigger number goes first. That is not true. You may have been told that in elementary, but that will no longer be true. I can actually have the smaller number first. I would just get a negative answer. So before you were told the bigger number goes first because they always wanted your answer to be positive. Well, now that I'm subtracting, my answer can be positive or negative, so the order has to come from somewhere else. And it actually tells you. So difference means to subtract. It says final first. So the number in the final column is going to go first. And then it said and beginning. So because final came first, final will be first in the equation. So notice the order. Difference means to subtract. Final and beginning. So if it said beginning and final, so if it said beginning first, the beginning number would go first. But because it said final, final goes first, and then it said beginning. So the words really matter. Final was first, so final number goes first, and then beginning. So for each of these columns, I'm going to erase this real quick. So for each of these columns, I'm going to put this number first, and then I'm going to subtract this number second. So I'm going to make equations. I'm going to do first, the first number minus the second number. So that's what I'm doing for this column right here. So if you're wondering how I'm going to get my expressions, this is the pattern I'm going to follow. Okay, so if the first number goes first, this is positive 50, which is just regular 50, negative 120, positive 610, which is just 610, negative 50, negative 500, and 0. So notice that they do put a plus. I can put that if I want to, but positive numbers have the privilege of just being the regular number, the number without the sign. So I know that no sign means it's positive, so I can write it without a plus. It says difference, so I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to put a subtraction sign after all of these. And then the second number is going to go next. So notice that these ones are positive, these ones are negative. So positive 400, I can just put 400. I can put a plus if I want, but it's pretty much regular 400. This one's 400 as well. This one was negative 200, so I can put parentheses like this, or I can put no parentheses. So it's really up to you, but I'm doing this number minus this number. Negative 50 minus negative 200, whoops. Negative 500 minus negative 200. So notice that these last four problems have a negative 200. 0 minus negative 200. All right, so I'm going to fill these in real quick because I know they got cut off. So that's a 0. That's a 0. That's a 0. This was also negative 200. So I'm filling these in so you can see. And then that was just a parenthesis. Okay, so I'm ready to go. So 500 take away 400. So it wants to know what the answer is. I'm going to use my whiteboard over here on this. So if I start at 0, I know that the positive numbers are up here, the negative are down here. So if I start at 50, positive 50, and I subtract 400, then I'm going to start at 50, I'm going to go down 400, where would I end up? And so in class we talked about, well, I'm going to take 50 spaces just to get to 0. And so I'm going to have 350 left of my 400 arrow. So 350 plus 50 is 400. So I'm going to go down another 350 after I get to 0. And it is negative because it's on the negative side. So over here, I'm going to type negative 350. The answer was green, so it's correct. Next, I have negative 120 minus 400. So I'm going to clear this. 0, these are positive, these are negative. I'm going to start here at negative 120, so I'm down here in the negatives. And I'm subtracting 400. So I'm going down, I'm taking away 400. And so negative 120 take away 400. Well, I'm going to keep going down, so I'm going to add these together. So I'm going 400 more down, or 400 more into the negatives. So I'm actually going to be at negative 520. So I started at 120 in the negatives. I'm going down. I'm not passing 0, so I'm going to add them together. And so I get negative 520. Next, I have 610 plus 610 minus negative 200. Yesterday in your ed puzzle, we saw that this subtracting a negative, these cancel out, so you can turn them both into pluses. Or you can think about it like this. These together, so it takes 2. So I can't just change one of them. I can't just change this to addition. It takes both of them to make the plus. So this turns into 610 plus 200, not 610 plus negative 200. So it takes both of them to make the addition sign. So if I do want to change that to addition with my new thing that I've noticed from my ed puzzle, I can do that and get my answer. It's also important to notice that when I subtracted a regular 400, so when I subtracted 400, I went down. So if I subtract negative 400 or subtract a negative, I have to go up. So I know you may be like, how can subtracting a negative turn into going up? Well, subtracting a positive already took the direction of going down. So when I'm subtracting 400, I go down, right? Because, for example, 5 minus 1, I would start at 5 and I'd take away 1. And I would end up at 4. So since subtracting a positive already takes the direction of going down, subtracting a negative, like if this was negative 1, that would have to go up because negatives and positives are opposites. So 5 minus 1 is 4, it went down. 5 minus negative 1 has to go up and be 6. So subtracting a negative has only one option, which is to go up. So keep that in mind. All right, so 610 plus 200, we get 810. Again, this is going to turn into, let me get a marker real quick. Sorry if I'm making you guys dizzy. Oops, I messed up. That was supposed to be negative 50 minus negative 200. Let me go ahead and fix that real quick. Okay, sorry, I'm going to fix that. There we go. So subtracting a negative, that turns into, they cancel out, they cancel each other out, and they turn into a plus. So I have 200 plus negative 50. So if I start at negative 50, oops. So if I start at negative 50 and I add 200, because remember that cancels out, and I add 200, then I'm going to go up 50 to get to 0. So I take 50 of my 200 just to get to 0. So I'm left with 150 going up. So for the next one, I get 150. Next, I have that was negative 200. Next I have negative 500 minus negative 200. Again, these cancel each other out and turn into an addition. So if I start down here, let me clear this. If I start at negative 500, remember I'm starting at the first number, and I add 200, which means I'm going to go up 200. I'll still be in the negatives, but I'll be a little closer to 0. How much closer? I'll be 200 closer, so I must be at negative 300. So 500 take away 200. I'm still in the negatives, but now I'm at negative 300. So I would just type in negative 300. And then for the last one, again, hopefully you notice that there's a double negative, a double subtraction. So this turns into 0 plus 200, which is just 200. So you'll just type that in there as well. All right, so you want all green check marks. Feel free to rewind if you need to. Go ahead and click next to the next one. Number 4, it says find the values of each subtraction expression in table A, and then find the value of each subtraction problem in table B. And the question you should be thinking of is, does order matter? So notice that these are the same numbers in a different order. So we have 3 minus 2, 2 minus 3. 5 minus negative 9, negative 9 minus 5. So they're the same numbers. We just want to see what happens when we switch the order. So 3 minus 2, you know what that is. I'm going to let you do these ones. I just wanted to point out that subtracting a negative, that turns into a plus. Subtracting a negative, that turns into, those cancel out. Subtracting a negative, those cancel out. Subtracting a negative, those cancel out. So 3 take away 2. 5 plus 9 is 14. Negative 11 minus 2, so I want you to think of it like this. If I'm at negative 11 and I take away, subtract 2 more, I'm going to go down 2 more, so I'm going to be at negative 13. So negative 13 for the next one. The next one, negative 6 plus 3, so if I'm at negative 6 and I go up, because it says plus 3, if I go up 3, I'm still going to be in the negatives, but I'm going to be 3 closer. So 6 take away 3 is 3, but I'm still in the negatives because I didn't quite make it out of the negatives. So this one would be negative 3. For the next one, notice that once I change that to a plus, 3.6 is now positive. So think of this as 3.6 to the right, negative 1.2 is to the left. They're going different directions, so I am going to subtract them. So 3.6 take away 1.2. So I am going to subtract them. And I know my answer is going to be positive because 3.6 is a bigger arrow, a longer distance, a bigger absolute value than 1.2. So my answer is going to be positive. So I'm just going to subtract them because they're going different ways. Same thing for the next one. So the next one, it's 3.5 minus, it's 3.5 plus negative 2.5. So one's positive, one's negative. They're going different directions. And so, let me zoom out a little. I'm going to subtract them. 3.5 is bigger, a bigger arrow, bigger distance. So I'm going to do 3.5, take away 2.5, and I'm left with a positive 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. 3.6 take away 1.2, I get 2.4. So that was it for the left side. And something happens on the right side. So 2 take away 3. Well, if I start at 2 and I go down 3, I'm gonna be in the negatives by 1. So notice that this answer is negative 1. -9, take away 5. So if I'm at -9 and I go down 5 more, I'm going to be at -14. Remember, this double subtraction turns into a plus. So 2 plus 11 is 13. Hopefully you started noticing a pattern. So hopefully you started noticing a pattern. So I'm going to leave that there for you to see. For the next one, I see a double subtraction, a double negative, so that turns into a plus. So I have -3 plus +6. Remember, one's going to the right, one's going left. I'm going to subtract, but I'm left with a positive. Again, double negative, double subtraction, double negative. This time, 3.5 is going left, 2.5 is going to the right. So I am going to still subtract them, but it's going to be negative. So hopefully you notice a pattern. I'm going to leave that there for you to pause, check it out. So there is a pattern. Finish your table so you have all green check marks. Number 2 says, what do you notice about the expressions in column A compared to column B? So what's different about A and B? Does the order matter? Will it change the answer? So did I get the same answers? Definitely not. So it does look like order does matter. I don't get the same answers because -13 and +13 are not the same. And then next it says, what do you notice about their values? So what do you notice about these answers and these answers? I notice, so yes, order matters because these are not exactly the same. They are close. Well, what do you notice about their values? I notice, so what pattern do you see? When you're done, don't forget to click submit. For number 5, it says, let's wrap it up. We're going to rewrite each of these subtraction problems as addition and then type our answer. I want you to not use a calculator. You can use a scratch paper. I didn't include a whiteboard. So let's go ahead and do this side first. So -2 minus 5. So that's the same as going left -2 and then left 5. So that's the same as -2 plus -5. No parentheses, no subtraction sign, just put it regular. Remember these two subtracting a negative turns into a plus. So I automatically made it addition. So -5 plus 7. This is like going left -6 and then left 3 more. So I'm basically doing -6 plus -3. Again, no spaces. This is already an addition problem, so it's already crossed off. And then subtracting a negative, those cancel out and make a plus. So I take away both of them. It takes 2 to make a plus. So I'm left with -5 plus 2. And then I'm going to answer them. So go ahead and type in your answers here. It will tell you if you're correct. Be careful because when I'm adding, I'm not always adding. So if they're going different directions, it's really like I'm subtracting. So although it says addition, if they're going different directions, like left and right, I'm actually going to subtract, and I keep the sign of whichever number has the bigger distance. And then the last one says, there are a couple ways to help you solve subtraction problems. We can use a number line, like I showed you on number 3. Or you can change the problem into addition problem, like we did here. And then you follow the rules for adding negatives. So I can change it to an addition problem and then follow my addition rules because I'm not always adding. Sometimes if they're a positive and a negative, I'm subtracting. Explain how you would solve 125 minus -75. Be detailed as if you were teaching someone to find the answer. So how would I find the answer for 125 minus -75? What would I do? How would I change it? What would I get? So you'll type that answer here. When you're done, click share with the class. And then number 6 has nothing for you to do. It's just a wrap up of the lesson. So subtracting a negative actually goes to the right. Subtracting a regular number, like a positive number, would go to the left. So subtracting a positive goes left. Subtracting a negative goes the opposite direction. So just a little wrap up. You don't have to do anything on this one. When you're done with your Desmos, don't forget to complete your exit ticket. So you'll click on the link. Your exit ticket looks like this. First name, period. What did we learn about today, or what was the learning target? Use a complete sentence. And then have you turned in your missing assignments? More importantly, your quiz from 217 and your digital notebook. And then click submit. When you're done, you can turn it in and have a great rest of your day.